Welcome into another edition of Corley Quarterly. It is brought to you by FirstBank, and we are joined by Belmont Athletics Director Scott Corley. I'm Kevin Ingram. Good to have you with us. What's going on, Scott?
Good to see you, Kevin. Doing great. Great to have everybody back on campus and trying to get back into a rhythm. So it's good.
Yeah, I was back on campus a couple of weeks ago, and it felt like everything was kind of coming back to life a little bit. So that was good. How are you guys handling everything as far as all the protocols and all that stuff, with the athletic department?
I'm proud of the coaches. I'm proud of our student athletes. I feel like they've embraced them as well as you can. It's obviously a new normal, and we're having to constantly remind the kids of the protocols, but that's pretty normal. I think, when I talk to other ADs, we're no different in facing those challenges. But I really do think our student athletes have tried to abide by them. They've tried to be smart with it. They understand, if you don't and you let your guard down and somebody were to test positive, and then, between that and the quarantining, it's going to take your team out of action for a while. Sure. So I think they've embraced it as well as you can, and they're adjusting accordingly.
We got a start date for basketball last week. November 25th will be the start. October 14th, the first day of official practice. Looking at 27 games for a max, maybe 24 plus, a multi-team event, something like that. But there's a lot of moving parts when you try to figure out a schedule, isn't there? I think you guys know as well as anybody in trying to piece all this together.
No doubt. It's very fluid right now. I think everybody's trying to figure out, what's their approach, what's their priorities. Is it conference games? Are you going to increase the number of conference games? Do you not? What are the other conferences doing? Are they more likely to play more conference games or conference only? So I do think Dan Gavin and the NCAA has done a good job with some leadership on this, where you can say, hey, here's our target start date. We recommend you try to play 4 non-conference games. All those things, I think, do help give us at least a guidepost of what we're going for. But right now, you take 2 weeks out of your basketball season, and the games that were scheduled there's an impact. I mean, for us, we're not immune to that. So we're looking at what are our non-conference opportunities, how many can we do, those types of things. But I think it's going to we're going to bob and weave, and people are going to, try to figure out what's best for them. And hopefully we'll have some clarity in the next couple of weeks, and we can share that with our fans and supporters and give them a sense of what it looks like.
Will you be able to salvage at least some of the non-conference, or do you have to kind of start fresh and go from there? How does that work?
No, I think we can. I think, so much of it, again, depends on where the game was on the calendar. Was it before November 25th? Is it after? But no, our intention is to try to keep a certain number. The Orlando Invitational that the men are part of, that looks like it's going to happen. We want to continue to be part of that. That's a really prestigious tournament and will be good. The women's side has been a little more challenging. They lost a few more games than the men did. But Bart's been in conversation with a lot of different coaches, and I think we'll be able to manage that. And we're blessed. We've got a lot of good local, schools within driving distance that I think would make a lot of sense to fill in the gaps.
Will the OVC schedule, you think, stay at 18, or might it be expanded?
We're talking about that. I think that's, nothing definitively been said on that. I think we got to look at the pros and cons of keeping it at 18 or increasing it, particularly in this environment. And again, I hope we have some clarity on that in the next week or so, because I do think you got to lock that down first to then know what your non-conference availability looks like.
You're going to have fall sports in the spring. What's that been like to try to plan for those things?
I keep telling my staff, rest up. It's gonna be pretty busy. That's obviously, as you can imagine, tricky as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that you got to throw in. We're blessed where we don't have football or beach volleyball, but we have to be also respectful of the schools in the OVC that have that and the impact that will have on their schedules. And so looking at all that, I think right now we're still trying to figure out what are the parameters, what are the priorities with those fall sports moving to spring. We obviously have the spring sports that we want to certainly honor their season because of what happened last spring where they lost some games. So it's a balancing act. I think, though, we're getting closer to figuring out what that is. And, I'll be glad when all that gets kind of sorted out, because it's a lot of, you're trying to figure out, okay, what days of the week, what can we play? What happens if you've got a volleyball match at the same day as a basketball doubleheader, same day as a women's soccer match? So, there's a lot that goes into that. And it's going to stretch us. There's no doubt about it. All of us in the OVC and throughout the NCAA, that's certainly a concern. Not only staff, but you got to think about athletic trainers. We don't have an athletic trainer for every team. So, how do you handle that? Because, obviously health and safety is paramount right now, and as always, but really right now. So, as you can tell, that there's a lot to sort out there, but we'll get it done, and I think we'll be able to certainly have a robust schedule for all fall sports, and they'll be able to compete for an OVC championship.
Scott, the social issues have been so front of mind, especially over these last few weeks and months. Explain how the athletic department and Belmont in general have been involved with that, whether it's, the panel discussion last week or the plans for the NCAA diversity and inclusion campaign coming up in October, or a voter registration drive that I know is happening as well.
Yeah, well, we're trying to do our part. We're trying to listen to our student athletes. We've got great leaders on our SAC group that I thought were very thoughtful when they wanted to develop a statement after the George Floyd incident. And we came out with, I thought, was a really good statement about unity. And so I think from there, we've tried to just grow and listen to our student athletes. Renee Schultz, the SWA here, has done a great job looking at programming. Very proud of what Coach Alexander, Coach Bart, and Coach Laura with softball, along with Kenise Sharon and Xavier Humphreys on our staff. That panel discussion was great, well received. And so, we certainly want to follow the NCAA. I think there is going to be a unity pledge and things like that. And, we've tried to be proactive. No, even before the NCAA announced no events can take place on Election Day, we had already made that decision. And so we're trying to certainly do our part, but we also want to be guided by what our student athletes are interested in.
You've made some coaching hires, Laura Matthews in softball, Olivia Jordan Higgins in women's golf. You bring some new people on board. It's a tough time to be looking for a job and to start a new job, but you have a couple of new coaches in place.
Yeah, doing those virtual interviews was certainly unique, and in a lot of ways, I felt bad for them because I think an important part of the whole process of hiring a coach is they need to understand us too and get to know us. And I do think you lose a little bit of that on the virtual interviews, but we still tried to do our best. We still had a robust schedule where they were having virtual interviews with various constituents on campus, and so I'm excited. I think they've both been, they've got the right personality to come into a situation like this. I think they're going to be, adaptable, which is what you have to be. I do know it's tough for them, particularly Laura. She was hired before Olivia. You're trying to get to know your team, and it's very difficult when all you can do is Zoom. So to have her team back on campus and together practicing, I think has been a huge lift for her personally. And then Olivia, I just love her personality, demeanor. I think she's going to bring a lot to the women's golf program. Got big shoes to fill. Alyssa Bradford was did everything right. But I'm excited to see what Olivia can do. And again, she's just got the right demeanor to get it done.
The Curb Center has hosted a presidential debate before, scheduled to do it again here shortly. How does that affect scheduling as far as the athletic department goes?
Well, I'd like to say it doesn't, but that would be lying to you, Kevin. Obviously it's a wonderful opportunity for Belmont University. So us in athletics, we're going to support that, and we're going to be great, partners in working with the campus. But it is a challenge. Let's not lie. We're going to be out of our facilities for a longer amount of time than anybody would like, but we understand that. Luckily, again, we've got great leadership and coaches that are adaptable and are not going to use it as an excuse. And I think our student athletes understand how important it is to look outside of yourselves and say Belmont University gets to host a debate and have 100 million people throughout the world looking at you. And so, we've been able to figure out contingency plans for our weight room, for our athletic training, and where our teams are going to practice. So I feel good that we've planned accordingly, and we're just going to enjoy it. It's going to be fun to see Belmont in the national, sphere of the political environment.
Another thing we're looking forward to watching is coaches Alexander and Brooks in the clash at the curb, facing off in cornhole and ping pong and horse. Interesting competition, to say the least.
This is huge. This is like groundbreaking. No, it's a great idea by Greg Sage and his team, coming up with some fun ways to keep our fans engaged and keep some content out there. And I know Bart and Casey will do a great job with it. They'll have fun with it. I'm sure it'll be competitive, but at the same time, they understand it's about let's have fun and let's entertain some people. So I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be awesome to see.
Scott, to finish up, these student athletes are tough, aren't they? They just keep on rolling with whatever you throw at them.
I tell you what, they are. I knew they're resilient, but to see how they've handled this has been spectacular. I mean, these are challenging times. I mean, there's a lot of loss that they feel by fall sports not having their season, spring sports getting their seasons cut short, men's basketball not getting to play in the tournament, women's basketball we feel like we would have gotten in the NIT, and then to be separated from your teammates for really an extended period of time that you're not accustomed to, that is tough. And there's a lot of, I think the toughest part for them, Kevin, was just, and it's for all of us, it's uncertainty. It's not knowing, it's waiting, it's hurry up and wait. And I think that when they got some clarity, particularly the fall sports, on knowing, okay, it's going to be moved to the spring, I think that helped. And then just getting them back on campus, getting them back around their teammates, obviously socially distanced and doing the right things. I can tell from them and just hearing from them that it's bringing them back to a sense of normalcy, and that's really good to see. But man, student athletes, they're tough and they're resilient and they adapt and they just want to get back to doing what they love to do and compete and form those bonds with your teammates that last forever.
We look forward to seeing him again. Scott, always great to see you. Thanks for the time.
Kevin, appreciate it.
All right. He is Belmont Athletics Director Scott Corley. This has been Corley Quarterly, brought to you by FirstBank. We'll talk to you next time.